The best thing a piece of media can do, whether it be a game, a movie, or something else, is to leave an impact on the viewer. No game has done that as much for me as Hello Charlotte has. So today I want to take you through the journey that is Hello Charlotte. The game starts with Charlotte in her room. By reading the book she has, it's called The Book of Truth. We're shown the type of people that live in this world. The Puppeteers, known types being Seth type, who we play as guiding Charlotte, and Lilith type. They live in True Realm and their purpose is to control and direct. They are aside humans only, probably. And finally, they can rewind time when their puppet dies. The Observers, they're world government members, they wear animal skull masks, and they're known representatives of the Umbrella Man. The Puppets, also known as humans, they live in False Realm. Their purpose is to, known representatives, Charlotte, Mum, Dad and classmates, not too sure. The Aliens, they pretend to be humans so they cause less ruckus. They also live in False Realm. Their known representatives are Huxley, Bennett, Aidan and the politicians. She goes to the kitchen and reads a note her mum left telling her to order food. Charlotte tells us that the note has been there for 8 months. We get the food from a giant roach. When we go to eat it, we meet the other residents of the house. Aidan, who is a tailor and a taxidermist, Huxley, who is a doctor, and Bennett. All 3 of these people are classed as aliens. Huxley asks us to look after his nephew Felix, who is also an alien. After exploring the house, Charlotte decides to go to sleep. She wakes up and Felix is now missing. Charlotte goes looking for him and enters one of the rooms and sees a giant distorted TV and dives into it Persona 4 style. She arrives in a castle and journeys through it, avoiding evil teddy bears. Eventually she gets caught and sent to another room with a TV. Entering this one leads to a hall with multiple TVs in. Entering the first one, we meet Felix again in a house full of boxes with eyes on. They explore the area until they reach a door, where Felix puts a code in. We get approached by a woman with 4 eyes and told that it's no use, no matter what we do, Felix will end up dying in one way or another. We get told to switch the channel, and when we do, we return to the house and Felix is alive again. They exit the house and enter the hallway of TVs again. Entering the next TV, they arrive in a hall with doors that have eyes. Opening one of the doors, they enter the space of happiness. They talk to a person with a blue flower on their head, who asks them to bring the contents of the red box. Charlotte and Felix do that and they get a ribbon with a pin on the end of it. They insert it into the eye of a door and enter a new room that branches off into 2 more. One having nothing but a wood chipper and a locked door, and the other being a maze. There's a door that requires one person to stay behind to activate it, so Felix goes on ahead without Charlotte. When Felix reaches the end of the maze, we see a scene with Charlotte. A man wearing an executioner mask comes up to her and asks if she's alone. She tells him that she has friends coming back. He says that she'll die soon, as well as Felix shortly after. Charlotte says that she doesn't want to die without Seth there, as he'll get fired and she doesn't want to cause any more trouble. The man whispers something to Charlotte and she agrees to do what he says because it will save Felix, even though she disagrees with his methods. We see Charlotte's eyes now are yellow, and someone else speaking as her, searching her bag for a weapon and ending out with scissors. The person that the man said would kill Charlotte and Felix enters, and the controlled Charlotte stabs them multiple times with the scissors. Charlotte returns to her normal self and leaves the room. Felix travels back through the maze to get back to her, and he enters the room with the wood chipper. He sees Charlotte putting something into it and she tells him it's meat chunks from earlier. They leave the TV and enter another channel. They head down a red path and see a dead Pathia. In the book, these are incredible, powerful beings that reside inside the TV world. The males have 4 eye sockets and the females have 3. Heading through the area, they see dozens more. Almost all the Pathias have been killed by the executioners. Charlotte and Felix enter a building and take 2 follower masks and use them to get into another building, where they walk past multiple executioners and get a code for another building. In the building, there's a painting of the Oracle on the wall. They enter a room full of dead Pythias who have all been killed by the executioners. They both leave and enter the final TV. Inside, they see the Oracle on the TV. They get told that every channel they visited were actually dead worlds saved as channels to be viewed by us. The oracles were killed by a god that consumed everyone's ego and caused them all to become one. People who didn't give up their individuality were killed. Charlotte decides to save the oracle by letting it into her body and destroying the other worlds. We then cut to Charlotte and the Umbrella Man on the couch talking about her adventure. We don't know how she got back or where Felix is. She mentions how the man uses her father's face, but she's okay with that. He then tells her to take the pills before going to bed. These pills are labelled as Abilify. These are the same name as real life pills that are used to treat mental conditions such as bipolar, depression and schizophrenia. After taking these, Charlotte's house starts to look normal. Unlike the previous version, this one is colour. She goes to sleep in her now decorated room that has a bear similar to the one that we saw earlier and a mad cat that looks like a normal cat instead of the one we saw previously. We wake up in Charlotte's room with Mad Cat 3 years after the events of the first game. She's been having weird dreams since she let the Oracle into her body and is now coughing up dark ink. We now have an entry for Oracle in the book. Not known purpose, godlike existence, one body vessel that cannot contain Oracle at full health. We also have new information on Mad Cats. They're cute as cats, as scary as maggots, they love food and are very loud. In the drawer beside Charlotte's bed, there's a drawing of her and her friend Ambry. We greet the residents of the house, Felix now having his own lab. We see Huxley. When speaking to him, we learn that Charlotte and Felix haven't been speaking much since her health started to get worse. When we speak to Felix, he gives us anxiety pills and tells us that the Oracle is nothing more than a rotting corpse inside of her head. He also says that when they left the TV world, her body rotted away and was reformed by Oracle. We speak to Bennett, who left acid in the bath, and Aidan, who's been giving Charlotte piano lessons. On the way to school, we see another white-haired kid being beaten up by a yellow person. Charlotte uses her pepper spray to attack the people and runs away with the boy. They enter school and start a socialization battle with another pupil. This works like your average turn-based RPG fight. But instead of health, you take down their social bar. Charlotte arrives in her class and someone taps her shoulder. Henry. The headless teacher announces that there'll be a new student, the boy that Charlotte helped on her way to school. He says his name is C and he's the one true God. After class in the cafeteria, Charlotte talks to C. He tells her that he's sure he's God and he's known since he first awakened in his human form. He's just looking for a way out, since self-harm is against the rules but violence isn't. He wants Charlotte to help him do that. A conversation gets interrupted by someone jumping off a school building. Charlotte rushes outside and sees it's her class representative. She returns home and goes to sleep. Waking up, she sees Oracle in a dream. She meets a Pythian named Frey. She wakes up to her doorbell ringing and she opens it to see that it's the Umbrella Man. He comes outside and tells her that she shouldn't have helped C and that he was destined to die that way. He says that as long as C exists, this route is doomed for a bad ending, no matter what her or her beloved puppeteer do. He mentions that she looks worse, and she says that she doesn't want to cause any trouble, so she isn't going to the doctor. He tells Charlotte that there's been more abnormalities than usual. She doesn't say she's seen any. She tells the Umbrella Man that she's not been taking her pills anymore. He leaves, reminding her that the Oracle is nothing like what it was 3 years ago. It's just a rotting corpse of a god now inside of her. Charlotte goes back to sleep and dreams again. This time Frey addresses Seth and tells him that he's not in control. Charlotte wakes up for day 2. She goes to school and starts coughing in class, so she goes to the bathroom to clean the ink. She vomits more black ink into the sink. She looks right and sees C repeatedly washing his hands and his face. He tells her that another student smashed his face into warm soup and now he's trying to get the feeling off of him. She goes back to her class and sees that her bag is now missing. Anne rejoins Charlotte on the search for her bag. They enter the garden, finding things from Charlotte's bag scattered across the floor. At the end of the path, they find the Book of Truth now torn apart. Anne leaves to report to the teacher and Charlotte returns home. When she enters the house, Felix talks to her and sees that she's now covered in blood. He takes her to Huxley. Huxley tells Charlotte that she has heart wounds. These happen when a person of her age is feeling stressed or anxious, and they manifest as scars on her body, mostly her arms. He says that the disease is incurable. Huxley tells her that there's a good side to it, being that although her body becomes vulnerable, her mind will receive less damage. On the way back to her room, she hears a fire sound coming from the kitchen. Interacting with the door, she smells something hideous and a voice tells her that it isn't a good time to enter. Aidan tells us that Bennett decided to try cooking and now it's destroying everything in sight. Charlotte enters another dream and sees Frey. She said that she's rearranged the place and gives Charlotte new clothes. Frey tells her that she made the place into a mine library where we can view past events, and there's a red and blue book. Interacting with the blue one, we see how Charlotte met Aidan. Charlotte was 9 and hiding under her sofa at Christmas. She was going to try and catch Santa with a rope and a bottle of chloroform. Instead of Mr. Claus, it was a horned creature. He tells her to come out and that he can see her. She asks why he's not Santa and he tells us that he is widely known by the name Krampus, so Santa won't be coming. Santa only brings gifts to good children, and he comes to punish those who misbehave. Charlotte tells him that she is good because her mum tells her, and she's always right. Krampus asks how her mum can be so sure since she barely sees Charlotte. Charlotte brought the chloroform-soaked towel to his face and he fell to the floor motionless. She dragged him down to the basement and two people peeked out of the dissection room. Bennett and his co-worker Florence. "You brought friends, why didn't you say earlier?" Bennett asks. Ever since he found that bright yellow hazmat suit and was no longer called B12, he's been in a great mood constantly. Charlotte asks him to help by turning Krampus into a friend. The Red Book tells us about how she met Bennett and Huxley. Charlotte was 8. One of the days she was home alone, they appeared out of nowhere at her doorstep. There was a constant knocking. She knew she shouldn't open the door. Her mum told her not to, no matter what. As time passed, the knocking got louder. She was hiding in her bed and she heard a click sound. Someone came into her house. She ran to the bathroom because her bedroom has no locks, but she was too slow. A figure in a hazmat suit covered her mouth and another hand curled around her. The other figure had a plague doctor mask on. It tells her that they're sorry to interrupt, but they have no place to go in this cold, and no other house would let them in. The person in the hazmat suit asked if she lives alone. "No," she replied. She thought of the Umbrella Man and how good it would be if his presence would appear sooner. He was nothing like those violent strangers. The man asks her if she can keep secrets. She agrees and the man in the hazmat suit lets her go. The man tells her that if she doesn't keep their presence a secret, he'll kill her parents. In the morning, she found both of them sleeping peacefully in the bathtub, having eaten all the soap and shampoo off the shelves. The next day, they were both settled into the basement and she was doing all kind of errands for them. The Umbrella Man appeared weeks later and assured her that he'd keep an eye on them. Charlotte wakes up on day 6. She's coughing up ink again and goes to the bathroom and sees Bennett this time without his mask. He has multiple eyes underneath his left one. He rushes off to finish his business in the violent room before the game of chairs starts. She visits Felix to get some gloves for C and travels to school. On her way there, Charlotte sees Anne-Marie and they both go to feed the stray mad cats in the garden. Charlotte leaves again to find C. She finds him and gives him gloves, and he gives her a notebook. Reading the book, we get told the story of the two gods, the Creator and the Observer. One created and the other placed the creations into the world. Even after every single atom in the world was perfectly arranged, the Creator continued to create, threatening all order that came into existence over billions of years. For the world to continue, the Creator tried to give up his own life by giving the power to his friend. The Observer refused until the Creator completely lost his mind, becoming consumed by the growing chaos inside of him. Unable to destroy him, the Observer sealed the Creator away, along with the part of himself that cared for him deeply. That tiny fragment of him became this world's only god. The sealed world became the house, and the former Creator's existence became scattered all over the place. Charlotte enters the changing room and tells us that something's off. We see Oracle bordering the room. She tries to leave but gets attacked by 3 creatures and ink starts flowing from her mouth, till it floods the room. Her vision goes black and she wakes up in her room. Frey wakes Charlotte up. "Just look at this warped reality bubble. The universe is expanding," Frey tells Charlotte. Frey tells Charlotte this time she's not dreaming. She's perfectly awake. Using the mirror, they both enter another room. She enters a mirror and sees a memory titled Feminine. Aiden is trying to get her to put on a dress he made. The next mirror is titled Individuality, and inside we see a Pythia telling a drone about their kind. The females go by the name Freya, and the males are called Frey. The Pythia says that they were not always meat dolls for the Oracle, and when the Oracle appeared, the world was divided into 2 factions. The Globalists, who wanted their minds to become one with everyone, and the Individualists, who were against that. The Individualists started a god hunt to get rid of the Oracle and the Globalists, to prevent the death of ego. The death of individuality would have meant the death of creativity and culture. The Globalists were stronger. They outnumbered the Individualists and gave their egos to Oracle. That's when the Individualists started to commit mass suicides, refusing to give in. Some ran and hid in isolation, creating traps and mazes to protect themselves. The memory ends with the Pythia saying they feel the world is ending soon, or perhaps it's already come. For living beings, Oracle is no god. It's nothing more than a parasite in our minds. Final mirror is titled Decomposition. Inside we see what happened at the end of episode 1. Felix and Charlotte are talking outside a TV. Charlotte falls down and begins rotting and melting, while bits of Oracle are on her. Leaving the room, Charlotte returns back to her school. C enters the changing room and asks why she's crying. Charlotte says she doesn't know why, and when she wipes her cheeks with the tissues he gave her, flowers start blooming from her arms. Her wounds are healing. Charlotte returns home and sees Felix helping Bennett after he got bit by a mutant spider. She helps Huxley take her corpse to the morgue room, and she gets a dark matter dress from Aidan. Charlotte speaks to Florence and gets Bennett's memory cube. Interacting with it, we get put in a hall with rooms we can enter. Entering the first one, we learn that the planet Bennett was born on had two races living on it, humans and overmen. They looked the same, but their roles in society were completely different. Bennett was born as a designer baby in the laboratory of human resources, a B-type born to live on nutritional soap as a lab rat for testing cosmetics, all for the sole purpose of a sticker saying safe for skin, approved by a leading dermatologist on a tiny cube of ice cream. Next room we learn about the types. A-types are the smart ones, fated to participate in intelligence tests, and B-type, which Bennett is, are good-looking, used in commercials, the movie industry, and medical tests. C-types are the living stock, used for mass-producing meat and products and candles. Pieces of clothing sometimes, but it's banned in most countries thanks to some activists. D-types are the workforce. They're sent to the most dangerous places like nuclear stations and mine shafts. E-types are used as pets. In the third room, we get told that in Bennett's department, there were achievement incentives. They collect MP points, which stand for motivational points. MP could be traded for rewards, eventually a promotion to a higher rank. The goals were simple. Tough one, smile when it hurts. 10 smiles out of 60 collected. Best buddy, if your friend is feeling ill, report immediately. 5 reports out of 10 collected. After someone was reported, they never came back. Bennett collected the most MP he could so he could get out and be among A-types. And the promotion day came. When he moved to the other department, he didn't have to test cosmetics anymore. He became a test subject for medicine instead, to be purposely infected with a skin disease and have all kinds of treatment tested on him. In the fourth room, Bennett tells us that his hair fell out, but it grew back. His valves were full of ulcers, and after he took an experimental drug, they were restored. He vomited and vomited and vomited, all food turning sour in his mouth. He felt like his insides would come out of his esophagus. Rinse, and repeat, over and over and over and over and over and over. In the final room, he tells us how one day he was accidentally infected with eye plague, an incurable illness that made eyes grow on both the skin and internal organs of the infected. He was scheduled for disposal. He spent a month in isolation, thinking it was the happiest time in his life. Then disposal day came. Charlotte then enters side B of the cube. She enters another room where Bennett tells us that a person in a lab coat came in, looking too young to be an executioner. It was Huxley, who had just signed papers for ownership of Bennett. Now completely covered in eyes, Bennett agrees to go with Huxley, as he is searching for a cure of eye plague. That meeting marked the beginning of their alliance, and many people started dying in the name of science. Bennett says that Huxley's lack of empathy for both overmen and men alike was the exact reason he was the most successful among his peers. He brought Bennett different books, one being a guide to cooking. If an animal dies in distress, that its meat will be hard to chew, it said. Aside from regular intakes of soap, Bennett's diet consisted primarily of various green products and high in protein, meat included. One day Bennett asked Huxley what type of meat he was eating, and Huxley responded with C-type. Of your kind, I believe. Bennett took another bite. This meat was incredibly tough. The next room, he tells us that Huxley bought him books and taught him reading and writing. He regularly tested Bennett's physical abilities, so he was kept in good physical form. Huxley talked too much and spent more time with Bennett than he should have. The next room, Bennett is now in his suit. He says the day Huxley cured his eye plague was the day that he told Bennett to get into a body bag. He declared him dead to the whole scientist society. Bennett asked what was happening. We're leaving. That was Huxley's short answer. Trying to cure eye plague was just a cover-up for what Huxley was actually testing, the capabilities of a human specimen, only to confirm that men and overmen were no different to each other all along. As they board his spaceship, he explains that he found a cure for eye plague long ago, and now only uses it as an excuse for doing his other projects. He tells them that they need to find a new home. In the final room of the cube, Bennett tells us that they printed all the money they needed on the day they arrived to the house, and that's how they ended up living there. Charlotte transfers home and goes to sleep. When she tries to, the umbrella man appears and talks to her about how she collapsed at school. She tells him that the Pythias she met in their world were the ones who rejected Oracle. The umbrella man tells us about what it was like for the Pythias who let Oracle have their conscience. It wasn't an instant transfer. It was slow, the thoughts and feelings of other people slowly creeping into their heads, buzzing until they couldn't tell which thoughts initially belonged to them. The god we worshipped was a devil in disguise. That's when the second godhood began. But the process of becoming one indistinguishable mass with the Oracle went on and on. until it consumed most of the population. They almost succeeded in destroying the Oracle, although it didn't mean to cause any harm. First, people welcomed it into their hearts, but when it failed their expectations, they tried to get rid of it. She wakes up on day 25. Amory isn't at school today, so Charlotte decides to eat on the roof so she can see the mad cats. On the roof, she finds C and tells him about her and Oracle. In return, he tells her about himself, another human vessel he once had. It was in a land where half of mankind descended, and were blessed with a gift. The gifted left their planet to build a city in the skies. It was given the name of the Aether. It was made of pure white, and those who lived there had white hair. C's gift was to cause cell apoptosis. I can't pronounce that. Everything he touched directly withered the very next moment. That was how his mother died, right after giving birth. She cradled him in her arms. Gifts as dangerous as that were kept in isolations from civilians, himself included. So the only thing C ever interacted with was a virtual parent and a few other devices. He tells her that's as far as his current memory goes. He can't remember any further details. C leaves and Charlotte goes to feed the mad cats, but when she gets there, they're dead. Frey appears and tells her that as long as Charlotte doesn't accept him, she will slowly die. But if she does, they can become something powerful. They bury the mad cats and Charlotte goes back to class. The teacher tells the class that the animals have died in the garden because of them being fed junk food, which contains harmful chemicals to them. The deaths were Charlotte's fault. Everyone calls her a cat killer and a murderer. Ink starts coming out of her mouth and she passes out. She wakes up next to C. He tells her that he carried her there because he thought she was getting made fun of because of him. He tells her that he's found a way out of the house. No guards, no classmates, the outside world. Charlotte asks if they can come back if they don't like it, and C unsurely says yes. They enter the unmarked floor and travel to a deserted city. They go through into a maze that causes Charlotte to fall to the floor coughing because it reminded her of something. Leaving the maze, they enter a dark area. C tells us that people were buried here after giving up their minds. They became empty, hollow shells of people who did nothing but mindless tasks until they collapsed and were buried here. There are trees people hanged themselves from. Charlotte wants to go back. She thought the outside world would be brighter. C tells Charlotte that the world reflected in her eyes must be a very nice place full of colour. But it's not the world he sees. To him it's a bleak, disgusting place. Charlotte asks where they should go, and C points to the sky. C tells her he found a way back to his initial form. He pulls out a pack of pills. He tells Charlotte that the amount they have to take is quite large, so he made sure there's enough for two. C tells Charlotte that he wants to take her with him, to his heavenly domain. They'll get rid of their heavy bodies and rise above the earth dwellers. They'll be the ones to purify this world. He asked if she accepts. By accepting, you get the happy end of ignorant bliss, where they rise together, but by refusing, the game continues. C's eyes widen. Charlotte tells him that even though he hates this world, she wants him to live. C's breathing becomes erratic, and his knees give in. He breaks down in front of Charlotte. A corpse of a god laughs behind her back. Frey tells her that the one who doesn't want to die is you, Miss Wiltshire. Despite of all the self-harm, all the big dreams about self-sacrifice, you still want to live your pathetic life till the very end. Charlotte tells him to stop. Just admit it, Frey says. You're afraid to die. Deep down you don't actually believe there's a place like heaven above, do you? Even worse, there's complete nothingness waiting for you. You'll die only to achieve complete solitude in an empty space of an afterlife. Not even your beloved Seth would be there for you. Charlotte covers her ears and tries to blur out what he's saying. Frey tells her that he just wants to be honest with her. Everyone just wants to use her. But why does that matter? You're with me. Even in the cold embrace of death, I won't leave you. You should let this boy die already. Charlotte plunges forward, gripping Frey's throat, squeezing it with all her strength. They fall down. It's getting hard for Charlotte to breathe. Frey tells her that he just wants her to open her eyes. C doesn't want to be saved. He wants to disappear for good. He opened up to you and look what you've done. You're the cruel one, Miss Wiltshire. Guards appear and take them back to the school. C said that it was his idea and he forced Charlotte to come with him because he wanted some fresh air. He thought it would make Charlotte feel better. The teacher tells C that he's forbidden to leave this room until the day of the trial. As punishment for his behaviour, he'll be robbed of all social points he had until this day. Charlotte is told that she will carry on as normal, but needs to be checked for her illnesses. C tells Charlotte not to vote for him in the trial. If a sacrifice has to be made, it should be him. He says that he doesn't belong in this world, and it's only natural that it rejects him. He says the voting is his last chance to leave. They both separate and go to their room. Charlotte enters Felix's lab and speaks to him. She asks what the thing that happened when they left the TV world looked like to him. He says it looked like she melted into biomass right in front of him. He asked what it looked like to her. She said it looked like she was holding hands with a beautiful girl. He asked if she still stays to the routine he advised her to do. She says yes. Get up, go to school, go to sleep. She believed as long as she did that, her mind wouldn't crumble without taking the pills. Felix suggests that she takes them again, but she refuses. If you disappear, if everyone disappears, I'll... Felix says he's sorry. Felix changes, and Charlotte sees it as the Umbrella Man. She tells him that he promised not to turn into her housemates. Why? Because I'll hurt them, he replies. He takes the scalpel from Felix's coat and brings it to his throat. She asks why he came. He tells her there's no specific reason. He asks how her new friend is doing. She says that he's not doing too well. She's hurt him. The Umbrella Man laughs. He says he's came to give friendly advice. He wants her to choose wisely during the trial. He leaves and Felix returns. Charlotte goes to her room. She says that she doesn't want to sleep and she's too scared to see Frey right now. She goes to the kitchen and sees Aiden. He asks what's wrong. He tells them that she wants to sleep, but every time she closes her eyes, the troubles of the slumbering god appear, and when she wakes up, new troubles keep piling up. He tells her to keep her head up and to visit the dressing room often. She returns to her room and goes to sleep. She sees Frey, who tells her that she'll soon see that the world is not worth living in. Charlotte wakes up on day 31. Looking around the house, we see that no one's home. She arrives at school and her and Amory eat at the rooftop. Amory tells Charlotte that there's rumours about her and Vincent, C, that's going around school. She asks what kind of relationship she has with him. Charlotte tells Amory that she's not too sure she wants to talk about it after what happened. Amory asks what happened. Charlotte says they did the Ascending to Heaven thing. Charlotte tells her that C didn't do anything bad and there's no need to get angry. Amory tells her that she might be a little dense in the head, but boys who act mysterious only want to use her. Charlotte covers Amory's mouth and tells her to stop. Amory suggests that they go feed the strays today. Charlotte tells her that she killed them by bringing them the wrong food. Amory blames Seth for not doing anything to stop them, and the Mad Cats ate the food themselves. Charlotte says that she still could have done something. Seth would have listened if she simply told him. Amory convinces Charlotte that it wasn't her fault, but she still looks upset. She asks Charlotte what's wrong, and she says she doesn't know who she's going to vote for in the vote. Amory says that Charlotte will vote for her like a good friend does. She asks if she's wrong. Charlotte tells Amory that she will vote for her. Charlotte returns to class and is told by someone to meet her on the roof. She goes down and gets held down by a group of 3 people. They pull out scissors and start cutting her hair. They tell her not to tell anyone unless they want them to cut other places. Frey appears in front of her and asks why she's not calling for help. Charlotte says that she doesn't want to cause any more trouble. Frey asks who taught her that. Who was it? Your mother. Be a good girl. Good girls always win in the end. If you be kind to others, they'll be kind to you. Violence is bad. All your life you've been manipulated by others. All because you care too much about opinions. Because you want to be loved by everyone. And when things don't go your way, you find excuses. Don't you have any pride? There are things worse than getting beat up. Going through such humiliation when all you have to do is take my hand, and everything that's unfair will perish. Charlotte tells Frey that it doesn't matter, because it's just her that will get hurt. Frey tells her that they both know it's a cheap lie. In fact, you want someone to save you, but dare not ask for it, because you deem yourself unworthy. Where are your so-called friends when you need them the most? Just so you know, even if your friends abandon you, even if your mother abandons you, I will always be by your side. Frey disappears. The 3 run off, leaving Charlotte lying among the remains of her once long hair. She hears footsteps coming towards her. Her mouth fills with ink. She faints and hits her head on the concrete. She gets taken to the infirmary. She walks home and goes to the bathroom where Aiden helps her cut the rest of her hair. In the TV room, she sees Felix and Bennett asleep on the couch playing harem dating sim gone wrong. Charlotte goes to Huxley and asks about her illness. He does a test on her and finds nothing. He tells her that he believes the illness is of a psychomatic character, which means the problem lies in her mind. He can't help in this case. Charlotte goes to sleep and wakes up in an Oracle-infected room. Frey tells her that she finally accepted him into her mind. He reads his story about when she first met the Umbrella Man. It was Charlotte's 8th birthday and he watched from the shadowy corner as she opened her presents. When everyone else had left the room, he reached out and gave her a yellow ribbon. We are all born colourless, he says. It's the people we meet who give us colour. Wear it as a memento of our alliance, will you? Frey then reads a memory of Charlotte's first dress. Back in the day, Charlotte had shorter hair and didn't dress girly. When Aiden awoke after Huxley's treatment, he was Krampus no more. He took a particular interest in making dresses and invited her to try one. She told him that it was wonderful, but she doesn't think she was cut out for dresses. He told her that she should let her hair grow, and she'll make a wonderful lady when she grows up. Frey asked what type of dreams Charlotte had before he appeared. She says they were of her mother. In one of the dreams, they were walking together on a street at night. It was raining. Then she fell to the ground and Charlotte dragged her away from the sidewalk. She took off her coat and covered her. She knew she had to do something but couldn't do anything without her mother's permission. So Charlotte kept asking, should I call for help? Should I call a taxi? Should I call an ambulance? She kept answering with I don't know, over and over again. So they just sat there, unmoving, people passing them. It felt like her body parts were missing underneath the coat, but Charlotte couldn't bring herself to check. Charlotte wakes up on day 32. Her room is now colourful and upbeat music is playing. The people she lives with are in her room, and when talking to them, both their and Charlotte's faces are scribbled out. Every time Charlotte talks to someone, another version of them appears. Eventually, Charlotte's room gets full of her friends, and she teleports to the trial room. We're presented with 3 options. Vote for Anri, vote for C, or withdraw. By voting for Anri, the person who has no votes is C. The host of the trial tells everyone that someone like Kim, who never socialises or goes to class, could never exist in this society, and they all cheer and agree. Everyone but Charlotte claps, and chants loser god. C gets taken away by security and Charlotte sees the Umbrella Man. He tells her that the boy is a perfectly human being, not special in any kind of way. Charlotte calls out to C, and he looks back at her. No face, like every other person there. For a brief moment she sees his face, a face of a small scared boy. He disappears behind the doors. Charlotte tries to run after him, but Anri stops her and tells her that people don't return from the smile room. Charlotte still goes after him. Charlotte enters the smile room and speaks to him. Frey appears and tells her that there's no soul inside of C. He's just a lump of meat lying on the table. Charlotte refuses to believe Frey and her mouth fills up with ink. Everything begins to collapse. Charlotte starts saying that it's not fair and this world shouldn't exist, while she slowly starts turning into Oracle. She says she wants to consume humanity, so it will ascend to a new level and evolve into something greater. So she rises above everyone and starts eating, until it hurt so much it was hard to breathe. She ate her classmates, her parents, her imaginary friends, the Oracle itself, the lands and the buildings. Her body eventually collapses and creates a black hole. There was no one but her left, yet she was with everyone at the same time, for she became the world herself. Holding the empty shell of a god, she cries. She admits that all she wants to do is save herself, so she looks towards C to save her. She sees the Umbrella Man who brought her a box. Inside of the Soul Cube, C's Soul Cube. The Umbrella Man asks what she's going to do now she's become a god, and Charlotte says that she wants to rest and look over the people she cares about. Charlotte asks if he'll help her watch over the world while she rests. He says that he will under one condition. She loses her name. The world will forget her human existence and her name shall become an empty sound. Her name will be erased from all soul archives. Charlotte accepts. He says that a contract between a name eater and a world eater will be thrilling. He says that hiding his true nature has no meaning now. After all, it was Charlotte who invented the concepts of observers and puppeteers alike. Such things as episodes with him talking to her puppeteer were no more than visions of a delusional grade schooler. Charlotte laughs. He asks what's funny. She says that he always said that his employers cared about her well-being. Now that she realises who it was all along, she can't help herself. Charlotte asks what his real name is. He says he goes by many names. People give them to him themselves. For example, she can call him Charles. They both laugh. He disappears. Charlotte looks at the soul cube in her hands, and she opens it, causing the contents of the box to disappear. See you later, Vincent. Charlotte takes his body in her arms and stands up. Every one of her friends walk behind her. As long as she exists, they won't disappear. After all, she created them. In a field of ink, machinery, dirt and bugs, a god lies beside me. He too will awake one day. Good night, Vincent. Her eyelids become heavy. She knows this will be a dreamless sleep. She doesn't want to dream anymore. She closes her eyes. Rejoice, Seth, faithful friend of mine. I became the god of my dollhouse world, and will observe its people till the end of time. Charles will eat my name. The world will forget my existence, but you won't. And that's the only thing that's important. Grey end, eternal rest for God. In the next ending, Charlotte chooses to vote for C. Anri looks at Charlotte in disbelief. Why, Charlotte? Why didn't you choose me? Didn't we make a promise? Charlotte says that she's sorry and he doesn't have anyone to vote for him. The host of the trial reveals who has 0 votes. Charlotte Wiltshire. Anri calls her a traitor and says it serves her right for not voting for her. Even that loser didn't want to vote for her. Anri says that even though she does so much for Charlotte, she never appreciates her. No one wanted to be the lunatic's friend. But Amory tried. Do you really think that puppeteers and aliens and all that exist? You honestly believe your classmate was a god? You really are a perfect match for each other. Mad Cats, oracles, Pythias, observers, omnicubes and whatever. Every day you kept making up a new lie. I'm tired. So tired of keeping up with it. Everyone in the class tried teaching you a lesson, but no matter what we do, you never get a clue. Charlotte asked what lesson. Her bag going missing, her things scattered on the ground, the dead bodies in the garden. Everything started falling into place. Charlotte walks to the smile room. She passes C. He looks lost, devastated, so very small and human. He tells her that he's sorry. She enters the room and gets strapped to a chair. Charlotte says that she's scared. She doesn't want to die and become an empty shell. Frey appears in the room and starts transforming. He says that he's been a walking corpse for a long time and that it was Charlotte who kept him alive. He can't leave her side and he never will. Charlotte reaches out and embraces the dead god. He melts into her arms, becoming a mass of organs and broken machinery. Meaningless, useless parts. Garbage of the mind. Good night, Frey says. As Charlotte sinks into the oblivion, a fragment of memory comes into her mind. The Ink Princess wasn't kept in paper prison for too long. The Paper Princess befriended the Ink Princess and they became the dearest of friends. The Ink Princess became the happiest person in the world. That's Charlotte's ending to the story. Felix appears and says that it's too cliche. How about the Paper Princess dying of intoxication after touching the Ink Princess, or the Paper Princess using the Ink Princess for ink production until it drains her completely? Charlotte says that not every story has to have a cruel ending. She wants the Ink Princess to be happy. Felix asks, even if she's the plague itself, a parasite. Charlotte says yes. It's not the princess's fault she was born that way. That's just how she is. Somewhere far away, the door to the smile room is opened. Somewhere far away, a lump of meat lay there, devoid of a soul. Somewhere far away, a false god wept over a mere disposable vessel. In the embrace of a dead god, I'll eternally rest among stars. Rejoice, Seth, this is my happy ending. Black End, everlasting oblivion. The final ending is achieved by withdrawing from the vote. Amory looks at Charlotte. So you really didn't choose anyone in the end? Charlotte says that's not true. She chose everyone. She didn't want someone to suffer because of her choice. Amory tells her that that was a dumb decision. Nothing less to expect from the school's infamous oddball. This time the host announced that there were 2 people with 0 votes this year. Vincent Wordsworth and Charlotte Wiltshire. She looks at Amory. Serves you right. Honestly, just go die already. For the sake of everyone. Charlotte and Vincent both get strapped down in the smile room. So he looks at Charlotte and she sees the horror in his eyes. He's shaking. Charlotte, he says, there's something I want to tell you. I'm sorry. I'm not who you think I am. I lied to you all this time. About puppeteers and observers. About the other worlds. It's just like everyone said. I'm a false god. A loser. A weakling. A coward. I don't know anything about this world or what lies beyond it. My name is not C, it's Vincent. Charlotte tells him that he's no loser god. She thinks he's wonderful. Charlotte's eyelids become heavy and she wakes up back inside of her mind. She talks to Frey and tells him that she wants to put an end to all trials. She wants to save C from this world. She wants to save Amory from herself. I knew you would say that. You still want to become the tragic hero for everyone's sake, right? A boy who put himself above all living things. A girl who loathed herself so much she raised her self-confidence at your cost. All your imaginary friends. A father who abandoned you long ago. A mother who never comes to visit. You loved them all, didn't you? Even though I was always there for you. You chose them over me in the end, Frey says. Charlotte tells him that he's a manifestation of all her destructive impulses. He said it himself. Essentially, you are me. I couldn't love you myself, Frey. I couldn't love us. Frey tells Charlotte that they'll repaint the world in her colours. Consume me whole. Charlotte takes a step forward and wakes up in the smile room. It's quiet. She leaves the room and everyone's quiet. She asks why it's so quiet. She sees Charles standing amongst the people. He asks what wish Charlotte made under a shooting star. I wish for all painful things to end, she replies. I wish for everyone's happiness. Just that. What a foolish wish. It did come true nevertheless. As long as human ego exists, people will always hurt each other. The only way to bring it to an end is to achieve ultimate control over each and every person. You selfishly ate each and every ego in the world. Now you're the only one left. Congratulations. You've become the oracle of this world. No way. Everyone's gone. Vincent, Amory too. Yes, their bodies are now vessels for you. Not only did you consume their soul data, but also the spare copies of it. They're gone now from this world. Charlotte asks for one last favour. For Charles to kill her. All I do is keep hurting others. Charles agrees. She closes her eyes, and instead of a sharp pain, she suddenly feels warm. You've done well, dear child. All this time you didn't want to be alone, did you? I'll grant you your wish. You will travel across the skies and you will learn how to control your power. Once you do, it is possible that you can rebuild this world from scratch. He reaches out his hand. He looks like Charlotte's folder from the old wedding photo. She takes his hand. They leave on a journey. I will travel across the seas and the skies, wander among roots and ruins of civilizations, watch life bloom and wither, and be reborn again. Perhaps then I'll learn how to be kind. Perhaps then I'll learn how to be honest. Perhaps then I'll learn how to not hurt others. I want to become a better person, Seth. Thank you for everything you've done for me. You've been a great friend. Thank you for seeing my story through the end. Let's meet again someday. White End. Stargazer's Journey. After getting each ending, Charles appears and speaks to us. So we've reached the end of the story. No matter what, Charlotte was doomed from the start. You see, my friend, you've committed a sin of worshipping false gods. Say, are you satisfied with such an ending? Or do you wish to see the child's story end another way? I have the power to grant your wish. You may call me mercantile, but by this time, you should have learned nothing in this world comes without a price. And that price would be your name. Say, will you give up your identity for a mere possibility? Will you give up on your existence? When I eat your name, you will no longer be the wise, kind-hearted Seth, because a child won't remember you. She always perceived you as her friend, when in fact you're just malware that infected our world. I did my best to introduce you as something trivial, when in fact you're not meant to be here. You see, there are no other puppeteers in this world. Every single word you've ever uttered was given to you by the child. You're just her imaginary friend. However, if you accept my help, she will no longer be aware of your presence, and no longer talk to you. For that price, you'll be able to save her. What do you think? By accepting his offer, we now stand underneath his umbrella, and we no longer go by the name Seth. Charlotte wakes up in her room and walks through her house. All the rooms have colour but hers. Entering Aiden's room, we see multiple dolls that resemble Charlotte. Speaking to Aiden, we see that his face isn't normal, and all he does is growl, so we leave. She leaves the house and takes a bloody elevator to school. On the way she sees a boy getting beat up, but instead of helping, she says that it's none of her business. She takes a picture and leaves. In the hall, there's a boy whose brain is melting because he's having a link overdose. She sees Amory and they both head to the roof to eat with their friends. Charlotte thinks back to the first time she met Amory. Her school clothes were stolen from her locker, so she had to wear the gym uniform all day. Charlotte says she saw her getting made fun of, and felt nothing. She didn't do anything, and now she's nothing more than an errand girl buying them coffee. That's all there is to it. Charlotte leaves on her own as someone tries to stop her. It's the Umbrella Man disguised as the person who's getting beaten up outside of school, so he can blend in. Charlotte leaves and gives a speech at the weekly White Society meeting. Today they're voting for a person to execute. Someone who has wronged them. Someone who has hurt them. They shall hurt them 1,000 times more. They vote and we watch the show play.
Bye.
Charlotte returns home and sleeps. She wakes up again and speaks to a now normal version of Aidan. He shows Charlotte a new headpiece that he's been working on. It's her own scalp, sewn into a hat. He puts it on her. He tells her to come back later as he has a new dress for her to try on. And it's very you, as he would say. Charlotte says alright and leaves. Nothing is alright. She enters Huxley's lab and speaks to a robot version of him that Florence made. Charlotte asks him if he can make ice cream and he says he can. It was designed to follow any orders given to him that doesn't involve the destruction of Huxley's work. She asks him to kill a worker. He blows up the head of one and it bleeds oil. Charlotte asks how many workers are robots and he says there are 4 now. She leaves the room and enters Felix's lab, where she reads some of the notes he's been working on. The Oracle and mind control. Mad Cats as disease carriers. Ice G. Charlotte says that if he doesn't want to play, she'll have to destroy his research. Steph tells her not to when she leaves. At school, her and Amory decide to skip class and go to the cafeteria so Amory can buy her food, because hanging out with Amory is quite boring. On the way there, they get stopped by the class rep. He tells Charlotte that she will be keeping a close eye on her. They get food and go to the principal's office. In there, they read files of the students. Charlotte Wiltshire, age 15, grade level, unavailable, hobby, skipping class and performance. Henrietta Warhol, Amory, age 15, grade level high, hobby, social networks and drawing. Henry Warhol, age 12, grade level low, hobby, procrastination and mobile games. They leave and get stopped by Charlotte's friends. They suggest they go study at Amory's house, and Amory hesitantly agrees. Her house is a darker, dirtier version to Charlotte's. They arrive in her room. The 2 classmates are disgusted at the state of it, and Charlotte sends Amory to get them drinks. While she's gone, they look around. Next to her bed is a pile of drawings and books, one of them being The Tale of the Ink Princess. They go to the door at the end of the hall, and they get stopped by Amory. They ask if it's her brother's room, and they try to go in. Amory begs them not to, but they open it. She says he's been like this since the start. Her parents never let her in the room. One day she got curious and looked. Amory tells her that it was self-defense. She says he's not human. She runs away and the girls leave the flat. Charlotte looks around for Amory, and she finds her in the bathroom. Amory tells her that it's not fair. She's in the next room and he's constantly rotting, but her parents fawn over him. She's the one expected to get good grades, and she's the one expected to get money for the family. She curls up and starts crying. Her tears annoy Charlotte. Charlotte leaves her and says that she has an execution to perform. Charlotte walked home. This world is swarming with parasites, tiny, invisible. Once they outwit your immune system, they eat you out from the inside, use you as an incubator for their offspring, control your mind and alter your personality, keep reproducing until every single person is consumed by the disease. Someone is getting attacked. They ask her who she thinks she is, letting her hair grow this long. They bring out scissors. Someone takes a picture. They're with Amri. She says that she wants to get blackmail on these girls, so that she can use it to frame them later. She does it to make her feel safe. The bully girl cries for help, but they leave. They go to Amri's house and still, the image of the beaten up, humiliated girl surrounded by the monstrosities won't go away. One wrong step and it could have been them, sprawled on the concrete floor, defenseless. The parasites would keep laughing. Now playing as a boy one day earlier, Saul puts their hand on his shoulder. Gala Isla, his unborn sister, the one who his father told his mum to kill, the one whose death caused their mental breakdown. The reason for all his misfortunes. Scarlett's been punishing him for his existence ever since the day he was born. You didn't wash your hands well enough. Scrub them for 10 minutes straight. You failed to get the perfect score on a test. Bash your head into the wall until it bleeds. You didn't follow the schedule. Hurt yourself with a cardboard knife. You didn't clean your room. Feed your pet junk food. You ate too much. Starve yourself for 3 days. I'm trying this hard for you, but you're never trying hard enough. You'll never pass the trial like this, is what she always says. The trial is all she ever talks about. According to her, the day of the trial is the day I die. I keep her away by drinking pills. I swallow 10 tablets and Charlotte disappears. The character we play as is called Charles, and he has yellow eyes like the Umbrella Man, who said that Charlotte could refer to him as Charles. His sprite and menu picture are different. In-game he has black hair and wears black, but in the menu he is fully white like Charlotte, and the boy he was using as a vessel when he talked to her earlier. He goes to his mother's room and speaks to her. He asks if she slept well. She says that she always does. He asks if they should have a fancy dinner since he saved up his money from freelance work. I'm sorry, I don't feel like getting up. He tells her that he'll make it and bring her to her room. She tells her that he's such a good girl. The screen cuts to static and we see Charlotte with needle marks on her hand. She talks to White Charles and tells him that someone had linked her, against her will, and she can barely move. In the menu he saved as C instead of Charles. He helps Charlotte up and she can't move her limbs. She says that she can handle herself after she gets through the door, so he leaves. Inside, Charlotte speaks to Aidan, who carries her to bed. He makes her a tea, and when she drinks it, her vision starts to blur. We see Charlotte being asked questions by someone. Do you think free will exists? This world is swarming with parasites. Once they outwit your immune system, they eat you from the inside. Use you as an incubator for their offspring. Control your mind and alter your personality. What if I said everyone in the house hosted a parasite in their heads? The house's inhabitants are only intermediate hosts. Their final goal is to infect people from the outside, the audience itself. That's why it's using all of us. It creates a story, an impactful story that will carry on to the world behind the screen. But not all stories leave a lasting impression, so they're created over and over again, until there's a combination of relationships and events at work, until there's a story that will infect the minds of the audience, who will, in turn, create something of their own. Production for the sake of reproduction. Creation for the sake of recreation. If I told you that was the reality of our existence, what would you do? Charlotte wakes up and the marks on her hands are gone. She says it's her new body. Of course her tea was poisoned. I know it, but there's no way I'd recover this fast if I didn't die. She goes to the bathroom to wash her face. She sees Bennett being sick from soap withdrawal, and she laughs at him for it because he's the brain-dead comic relief character. He warns her to stop. She doesn't. What can he do? Kill her, she asks him. She can't die. He says that he can torture her though. She tells her that even though all of the mindless jobs he does for Huxley, he still failed to make a mindless killing machine out of him. She tells him that he has no self-control when he's sober. He says that what he did shouldn't kill her, and her vision fades to black. She wakes up, her head aching and hands sticky from blood. There's someone else in the room, Charles. He asks if she wants him to get Felix to treat her. She says no, as she's changed his cereal to dry bloodworms the other day. Charlotte asks how long she's going to be pressuring her housemates until they kill her for. She says forever, until she dies. She asks how old she is and Charles says 3. He tells her that she uses too many spare vessels and her lifespan might be shortened if. She walks back into the room and leaves for school. On the way out she sees them having a party. She asks why and Bennett goes to say something but gets stopped. They tell her that it's a surprise party for her. Felix tells Bennett that he said she was actually dead this time. Bennett tells her that he might have just wanted to have a party. Charlotte speaks to Bennett, who is now happy and high on soap again. She apologises to him for provoking him. She leaves for school, but before she leaves she remembers that Huxley wasn't at the party and she goes to look for him. She can't find him, so she decides to get a weapon and she descends down his secret passage. Then she sees something she shouldn't have. An underground laboratory full of tanks with clones of Felix inside. Huxley steps out from the shadows. She asks him why he has this. He says that he's getting old, and it's not news to him that his dementia is progressing with rapid speed. When he realised what was happening, he proposed a project to his team, and that's how Felix Honecker came to be. She asks if Felix knows. He says that he doesn't. He says that his nephew is fairly motivated, all because he wants to be like him, just like he was designed to become. Charlotte threatens to tell Felix, but Huxley tells her that if he learns, he will have an existential crisis and stop functioning properly. In the worst case scenario, he'll have to be replaced with a more capable asset. Although his replacement is inevitable at some point. None of the Honeckers have lived longer than 2 years so far. He says that research taught him that females live longer than males, so it's only a matter of time till Felix becomes Felicia. Charlotte uses the bat she has and smashes the tanks. She leaves the room. She arrives at school and gets stopped by the class rep, who asks her if she knows what happened to Amory. Charlotte says that she doesn't know. When the class rep asks if Charlotte cares, Charlotte says no. Amory isn't her friend, just a stalker. Charlotte goes upstairs and finds C having a panic attack in her room. She waits for him to stop and tells him something. You're afraid of the class rep, Scarlett Isla. Charles denies it. Whenever she's around, you're not here. You're scared. Charles denies what she's saying. Charlotte tells him that he is, and she'll find out why. Charlotte leaves and goes to ask around about the Link incidents before execution hour starts. She goes to the infirmary and sees Charles. Charles tells Charlotte there's someone pretending to be him in the house, even though there's a rule that no one can enter or leave. He thinks the entity is no outsider, and it's rather powerful. He's an observer, not omnipotent, so he can interfere to a degree, but there's only so much he can do in borrowed vessels. That entity, however, only pretends to be a bystander. It's fully capable of shape-shifting and manipulating the stories in a way it finds fitting, adding elements that weren't supposed to exist. Charlotte tells him that she doesn't want to go home because the tenants hate her. They say they don't, but she knows how it actually is. Felix is scared of her. The others act like she doesn't exist. Only Aiden is on her side, but he was brainwashed into it. Charles says that they're supposed to be friendly units. Charlotte tells him that 56 of her deaths in the house were their fault, and only 23 of those were accidental. Charles says that it's her fault for hurting them, but she tells them that if she doesn't, they'll ignore her. Charlotte leaves and gets ready for showtime. We're now back as Black Charles. He sees that he has no pills left and speaks to Scarlet again. He tells her to stop writing that stupid fanfic and that the cast is boring and repetitive, minus the main character, who's mentally disabled anyway. He tells her not to insult his daughter and that there's no concept of free will in his story anyway. All the characters are controlled by the parasite. He says that even C complimented him. Scarlet tells Charles that he's losing focus and he'll never pass the entrance exams if he keeps doing unnecessary things like this. She asks him if he's giving up. Don't you want to become a doctor for mother's sake? He says he does and he'll start studying soon. He gets a message from C. He says that he'll be leaving to his heavenly kingdom soon. Charles asks if he's sure, and he says it's his final decision. Charles says that he'll come with him. They say goodnight. Charles is going to say something, but before he can, Scarlet turns off the computer. Charles says that C is going to die and he needs to help him. Scarlet drags him to the window. Charles leaves his room and speaks to his mother. He asks if she wants to go for a walk, but she says she can't get up. He says that the pill should be working, but she tells him they ran out and it's now a month wait. He says that he's been studying hard and she tells him not to push himself too much. He says that he won't and he calls him a good girl. The screen cuts to static and we return to Charlotte's perspective. She's on the floor unable to move her limbs. It hurts, she keeps repeating. Scarlet tells her that she stabbed her and threw her out the window. Scarlet says that she's tired of Charlotte hurting people and there's no one else left to punish her for her deeds. She tells Charlotte that if she hurts Emery ever again, she'll break more than her legs. Charlotte asks why she's doing this, and Scarlet says it's not for Charlotte, it's for you. She addresses the player. By now you should be aware that Miss Wiltshire has been terrorising the floor for a long time. Scarlet crushes her head with a bat. She tells us that she has the most vivid memory of True Realm, so by using Link and connecting with Wiltshire, she can show us the truth of this world. Just wait a little more, and she'll show us everything. She takes Charlotte's eye. Charlotte wakes up next to Charles in the infirmary and tells him that Charlotte wants to ruin her show. She's obsessed with murdering her. She asks Charles that Scarlet was the one who linked her. Charles tells Charlotte that this world Scarlet Isla is based on his imaginary construct of her. She's the sister he wanted to have. She wasn't supposed to be hostile, so she can't understand what's driving her. Charlotte goes home. When she gets home, she goes straight to sleep. My educational program at school began. On Monday I got laughed at in class. On Tuesday my bag got stolen. On Wednesday I was dunked into a toilet. On Thursday I got assaulted in the changing room. On Friday I was made to eat dirt. On Saturday I decided I will not give in. I will not become a victim. I will not get soaked in ugly colours. I will not become tainted. No matter what it takes, I will stay pure white. Charlotte tries to escape. She climbs through a vent. She enters a room with a pile of bodies inside. She hides in the pile. She escapes to the elevator where she's confronted by Scarlet. We see Charles and C standing on a roof. Charles asks where he came up with this whole universe birth theory. Vincent says that he's thought about it a lot and concluded that our souls are the source material for universes confined within our bodies. When a person dies, their soul data gets released and explodes like a big bang. When a new universe is born, it can become a hellish place or what I like to a paradise, depending on your mind state. That's why there are myths of heaven and hell. Charles asks if it's like a universe of you, and Vincent says that one could put it that way. Everything that you were inside gains shape and form, and life is born. Charles asks if it's possible that our world is just someone else's mind taking shape, and Vincent agrees. He asks Charles what he would do if he became a god, and Charles tells him that he cleanses his disease-stricken world of all contamination. But Charles says that he's not cut out for that. Gods are creators. Even when he tried to write his own story, all he did was take Vincent's setting and twisted it to his liking. He says that he's not original at all, and his writing has too many plot holes and pandering. The story's protagonist is the little girl too. Everyone and their dog has done that already. Even when writing villains, he ends up falling into cliches, like demons in contracts and such. Vincent tells him that it's not the originality of an idea, but the execution that matters the most. It's so easy to dismiss concepts as overused, but isn't it a wonderful feeling when you accomplish making a sincere story? Moreover, I believe that everyone can get better with time. Vincent looks down, Charles takes off his glove, they reach out. In a far, far away land, there lived a quiet god. He never uttered a single word, and lived his life in complete solitude. It was his creations who lumped together and couldn't stop talking. He must be sad, said a few. He must be suffering, pondered some. He must be lonely, claimed many. But contrary to their beliefs, the quiet god was happy. Surrounded by the comfortable silence, wandering in the space abyss, he pondered many things, like how could they endure all this noise, or how could they use language not to connect, but to hurt each other, and how could they feel so alone when they're surrounded by so many. And when the quiet god got tired, the darkness engulfed him, and held him in its embrace, without a word. As his followers cried, how cruel, how unforgiving he is, the quiet god slept. We see Charles talking to Scarlett. He struggled to breathe, gasping for air. All he could see is Vincent's body, human, real, mangled on the ground. He's gone. Gone. Charlotte tells him that he's worthless, and that she knew meeting that person would be a bad influence on him. She should have protected Charles from him. He tells her that it's her he needs protection from. He tells her to disappear. She tells him that she's here to protect him, and she's the only one who can do that. Without her, he wouldn't amount to anything. She tells him to do what she says and they'll be fine, to forget about this false god and think of the person who's always been there for them. She asks him if he knows who she's talking about. He covers his ears. We see Charles and Amory in a room. Amory tells him that she'll be moving away. Now she wishes she didn't have to, and that she could go far away from her brother and her parents. She says that she's tired. Tired, tired, tired. That's all you ever say. How the world's unfair, how everyone's so unfair. It's not my fault. Boo-hoo. I'm sick and tired of your complaining. I've never met your shut-in brother to begin with. He could be a corpse for all I know. Amory says Charles' name. Amory, I know. Why don't we run away together? She has to be serious. He says yes and that they should skip school tomorrow. She tells him that she can book a hotel. We then see them both in a hotel room. He takes her hand and tells her that he knows where they should go next. He gives her a pack of pills. She throws them at him. They packed their stuff and returned home the next morning. The next month, Anri's family moved to another town, like they initially planned. A year and a half later, they stopped talking to each other. All ended well, there's nothing to be sad about. Once upon a time in a faraway land, lived a skin princess. Every day she changed her skin to appear in the best light to every person she met. Every night she ripped her skin off, crying from the unbearable pain it caused her, whispering "it's not my fault, it's not my fault," over and over. Little does she know, all the people in her kingdom were blind to begin with. We see Charles talking to his mother. It was easier if my mum was a workaholic who was never at home. It'd be easier if we hated each other. It would be easier if I didn't remember the days where she was full of energy. Who would want to admit their parent giving up life and slowly rotting in their bedroom? Who would want to admit to thinking of their only parent as a parasitic existence? After that day, nothing was the same anymore. We see a teacher ask him a question. He opens his eyes and sees everyone with the same mutilated face his mother had. He rushes out of the class, straight to the bathroom stall, the voices of his classmates following him. He vomits into the toilet. That moment he realised he could never touch a human being again. Only Vincent's face remained unchanged. White, clean, sterile, free of contagious parasites. Vincent, I want to become clean too. I want to ascend and become like you. What in the world should I do to wash this filth off? You knew all along, didn't you? It was this simple. We see Charles walking along a beach, wondering if an entire ocean would be enough to wash all the ink off him. In the end, he couldn't replace Scarlet. He couldn't help the bullied one. He couldn't choose Anri. He couldn't bring Mother back. In the end, he achieved nothing. He didn't amount to anything. He failed the trial. If there is an afterlife, I don't want to be the protagonist. Someone like Charlotte would be more fitting for the spotlight. In the end, my story wasn't about overcoming hardships. It was a story about giving up. He hears Scarlet's growl behind his back. She tells him to stop being childish and return home. He covers his ears. She tells him to stop pitying himself, that he's not trying hard enough. He tells her to be quiet. You're not even my sister. All you are is an ugly reflection of my own self, a cancerous tumour in my mind. Her voice is so loud, but the deeper he sinks, the quieter it gets. So he sank and choked and gasped for air, and felt his lungs explode. There was nothing to be sad about. All ended well, didn't it? sees Charlotte in the infirmary being spoken to by Charles. She's surprised to see him and asks where he's been. She says that she's looked everywhere for him and he looks younger. He tells her that he's always been here. The universe is of his mind after all. In second, he can change shape and form however he wants to in this place. Don't you remember? We drowned and died, he asks. And boom, a universe is born. He tells her that he will tell her everything, all the secrets and facts of the world, and that she might want to keep a journal for it. She asks him why he was hiding all this time. He says that he wasn't hiding, that he was just scared to approach her. He says that that doesn't matter though, because she's not that Scarlet Isla anymore. She says that she has wanted to apologise ever since she has woken up in this world. He says he came to ask for help. He tells her that this world is on the verge of collapse. She asks why. He tells her that Charlotte Wiltshire is the one corrupting this world. Everyone is unhappy because of her. She's the one in charge of the public executions occurring on a daily basis. She's the reason so many students are committing suicide and get sick with a contagious disease known as white flu. She's dangerous, psychotic and childish, killing just for the fun of it. And it pains him to see his creations in agony. After all, they're a part of him. But even though he's the god of this world, he's a mere observer. He can't do anything against her. Scarlet tells him to leave it to her, and that's what she should do. Charles tells her that she needs to sabotage her story. The reason why Charlotte acts like this is because she constantly feels paranoid of her audience. She despises interactive storytelling and doesn't want the puppeteer to play. That's why Scarlet's target should be the audience and not just Wiltshire herself. She's nothing but a mere puppet, albeit a self-aware one. She has what she needs to do specifically. He says that she has memories of her past, and all she has to do is show them to her puppeteer. When they to learn that the truth of this world was so pathetic, they stop supporting the story and leave on their own. As a consequence, Charlotte will stop hurting others. He asks if he can rely on her. Of course, Scarlet says. Leave everything to me and I'll make it right. We see a camera facing towards us. After what feels like an eternity, I can open my eyes again. The vivid imagery of Charles's past clouding my eyes. The growing nausea is becoming too overwhelming to bear. Where am I? This must be the Y Society room. The camera is on. We see Scarlet talk to Charlotte and tell her that the show is about to start soon, and Charlotte is the star. Charlotte falls to the ground unable to keep her balance. There's no strength in her limbs. If you get your wish granted, your story will end immediately. Then I warn you, Charles would say. In the end, Charlotte couldn't stay white. Charles appears and walks up to her. Looks like this is the end of your story, isn't it, Unit Q84? Mother network power overuse, drug side effects, everyone wanting you dead. All of that must have spread up the process. Too bad your body and soul have an expiration date, soon to be deleted and disposed of. How was it in the commercials? A new story, a new Charlotte. In this brand new installment, what kind of girl will she be? Charlotte threatens Charles. He picks her up. He tells Charlotte that he'll miss her. He says that he spoiled her too much and that she knows more than the other puppets. He says it'll be with her in her last moments. Miss Protagonist. He asks her if she's afraid of death. She says no, but after you tell me the meaning of the house, it occurred to me that everything is ultimately, hopelessly meaningless. That's when I thought, why play nice if I'm just a disposable asset? Why forge relationships with people who aren't real? Why care? It's a matter of minutes till my soul cube self-destructs. Everything is pointless and it's all your fault. Charles says that he knows. He tells her that it'll be okay, feeling the last bit of strength leaving her. She leans on Charles. As much as she wants to smash his head against the floor right now, having someone to lean on doesn't feel so bad. She closes her eyes and tries not to feel anything. Looks like it's the end of my story. The Umbrella Man appears. You, Charles says. Charles says that doesn't matter right now. Q84. Is there really nothing I can do? How cute, the Umbrella Man says. Tiny Gift's favourite doll just broke. The only pure white one became contaminated in the end. A pity, isn't it? Charles asked him to save her. He laughs and tells him that there's nothing he can do. Look at her. She's decomposing. The Umbrella Man tells Charles that there's a story where Charlotte also became self-aware, albeit without Charles's guidance. Coincidentally, this is the story the Umbrella Man and the Puppeteer are going to experience soon. The Puppeteer asks Charles if he wants a puppet as a replacement, but Charles says that it wouldn't be the same. The Umbrella Man says that there is one option. The player has the save files to the puppet's soul data, so you can try loading them into a Charlotte vessel, but it would be seen as an error by the Mother network, so I don't recommend it. The Puppeteer suggests using a Vincent vessel. Those are hopelessly suicidal anyway, so it's a win-win solution. The Umbrella Man leaves Charles and says that he has an audience to entertain. The Umbrella Man talks to us. He says that there's not much left to do in this place, so we'll be leaving shortly. As you may have noticed, this Charlotte wasn't the child you wanted to save. Or did you actually like her more than the Charlotte Wiltshire you've been with for so long? We say that our Charlotte's better than Q84. Of course, the Charlotte you met first is the one who matters most. Well, aren't you loyal? You must have many questions as to why I have led you to this particular story to begin with, but do believe me, it's vital to understanding everything that will happen from now on. You surely didn't think you were going to travel in time and change the outcome of prior events, did you? Because if you did, that'd be rather unfortunate. After all, like I've said before, there's no such thing as rewinding time in the house. One story ends and a new one begins. It's an endless cycle of life. You know how it goes with games. You can always start a new one. The world is clad in white and red. The awakened one sings a song of hatred and despair as she drains the colour from the breathless bodies. In this deafening catastrophe of painted screams, I say a silent prayer. The monstrosity hovers above me, sneering. Let's play hide and seek, shall we? I feel like something crawled into my ear, but I'm frozen in terror. It's futile to resist. Run, little girl, she says. Let's meet where Mother is. We see Scarlett trying to find a place to hide. She walks along and sees Charlotte's body. She turns to us and asks if we're here. We confirm. She asks us to help her find a place to hide. She tells us that she's injured and Wiltshire's looking for her. She can't afford to die here. She takes Charlotte's arm so she can get into the house. She enters the elevator and goes to floor 1. Scarlett has a minimalistic view on life, so when we play as her, we can see in full colour. She enters a vent in full sleep in the janitor's closet. She gets woken up by Felix. He tells her that she has 10 seconds to explain herself or he'll activate the security system. She covers his mouth and tells him to be quiet in case Charlotte hears them. He tells Scarlett that he knows Charlotte and that she isn't home yet. Scarlett tries to run but can't. Felix tells her to calm down because Charlotte isn't here and he's not her associate. Felix asks what Charlotte did and she tells him that she killed every person on the 2nd floor. He tells her not to make too much noise so Bennett doesn't hear, and to not try and leave because the door will incinerate her. He says that Scarlett is his patient and she'll be safe as long as she trusts him. Felix leaves and Scarlett asks for our name. Seth, we reply. She tells us that was her father's name. She tells us she has memories of True Realm, but she doesn't see them as her own and doesn't have any connection to them. She says that she wants to apologise to the person that Scarlet Isla of that world hurt the most. However, no matter where she looks, she can't find him. She goes to sleep. I dreamt piles of bodies, soaked in red, with Charlotte Wiltshire sitting atop them. Find me, Scarlet Isla, she says. Let's meet where Mother is. Pushing me down, hovering above me. Charlotte Wiltshire is crying. Scarlet wakes up and tells Felix that she needs to find Charlotte. She follows him to a room in his lab. He shows her a box that contains organic matter that's infected with a parasite. He says they were able to extract it out of Charlotte while she was sleeping. Killed her in the process, but she respawned anyway. He tells her that after it obtained a host, it kept growing like a tumour. They were able to contain it because the host isn't sentient in any way. It's a viscero-complex, which is basically a brainless mass of organs. With a sentient host to feed on, however, this parasite can manipulate the fabric of time and space. Felix calls it the Oracle. Scarlet asks him if she can become a host. He tells her that it's basically suicide, but she tells him that she wants to do it. Felix agrees. He gives her a parasite in a tube and she tells herself not to take it, but something inside of her tells her that she needs it to find Charlotte. She wakes up on a mattress next to Felix and he tells her that her body is rejecting the parasite, and that she won't last for long. He says that she is at most a week. They both go to floor 4 to start their search for Charlotte. They arrive at the Logos village, which is located in the dimension inhabited by anthropomorphized languages. Going through the village, we see people praying to prisms. If they don't pray, they'll disappear. Going into the gallery, we can read 5 poems. The first one being titled, The Disorder. They thought you were pretending. They thought you were kidding. They thought they'd play along. Believe me, I do know that you're not a liar. Anorexia. Eating was wonderful. Eating was awful. Eating was blissful. Eating was sorrowful. Eating was joyful. Eating was mortifying. An apple a day. Couldn't you keep the hunger away? Death of personality. To you who I no longer know. There was no other choice. Just one can stay. The other has to perish when you failed, right? A failure. That's what you are. You couldn't, you haven't, you didn't, you weren't able to. So let me gently lower you into a tub of acid. Watch you slowly dissolve as I put on your skin. There's no doubt I'll be the one. Though yet another failure. Floanzo. Listen, dear child. We'll split the pill in 2. One half for me, to make me want to get out of bed and work myself to exhaustion, and the second half for you, to calm your heart and soothe your fears. No one will notice we're not the same. Obsessive and compulsive. Wash and repeat, it's not enough. 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 They leave, and on their way back to the power anomaly, where they think Charlotte is, they get sucked into a pitch black vortex. They're underwater and they look up. They walk towards the villagers but get stopped by the guardian of the World Sea, who protects the Great Cluster. They say this is how it should be. The pure white one came and unified us. The pure white one became the core. It was both our and her wish. Scarlet asks where Wiltshire is, and Felix says there might be more than one Charlotte in the house. Felix asks the Guardian why he's guarding the cluster. Isn't your population going to go extinct, he asks. The Guardian tells them that the Great Cluster is not the cause, it's the consequence. Felix tells Scarlet that the Great Cluster absorbs all existing languages into it, and unifies them as one. In this floor, Charlotte Wiltshire must be at the centre of all of it. She's the centre of the Great Cluster. The Guardian nods in approval. Felix and Scarlet return to the first floor and she falls in a deep sleep. She wakes up but Felix isn't with her this time. She finds him analysing data in his lab. He tells her to go to floor 6 with Florence today, as he's busy. They enter a floor named Laboratories. At the end of the floor they find a tube containing something in it. They read the sign on the tube. The Oracle Project. Name Charlotte Wiltshire. Unit 091. Status: brain activity green, vitals activity green, lung oxygen green. Florence says that they're probably keeping her alive for the sake of the TV world. It's the universe of her mind after all. If she were to escape it would ruin their show, so they weakened her body and kept her mind on suppressants. Scarlet says that it's wrong to keep her in there and they need to help her. Florence tells her that they can't, there's nothing they can do. They leave the floor. Scarlet goes to sleep and wakes up again. She sees Felix, who brought her a rabbit that Huxley said would cheer up the terminally ill patients. He tells her that her condition is getting worse, but she just tells him that she needs to get to the next floor. Felix says that he's already arranged a trip for her. He still has business to finish here, so she'll be going with Bennett. Felix tells us that we'll be going to the 9th floor, and that is infamous for its advanced civilization that turned their floor into a garbage dump. That's why it's called the landfill. The door to the elevator doesn't open, so Bennett presses the emergency button, and the elevator floor opens underneath them. Bennett lands but can't find Scarlett, so he goes looking for her. With Bennett's old school worldview, we'll see the world in a new light. He finds her and calls Felix to tell him that she broke. On her way down from the elevator, she hit her head on something. Bennett picks her up and carries her through the floor. He enters an escape room, where he has to find clues to get out. Eventually he enters a dark hall. At the end there's an elevator that takes him down to Eden. On the way down, Felix tells him that he might not have long left. He asks Bennett to promise that he'll make sure that Scarlett gets to floor 11 okay. Who knows, maybe there's heaven up there. Bennett promises that he will. He exits the elevator and sees a massive version of Charlotte. Felix says that all living life forms on this floor live inside of her. Maybe this world was dying, so she became shelter for them, Bennett says. That's what their Eden is. They leave the floor and Scarlett wakes up on her mattress again. She leaves the room to find Felix. She enters the lab and sees Bennett and his workers around a body bag. Bennett tells her that he's under Huxley's orders. He grabs her arm and takes her to the elevator. He tells her that she'll leave this place and never come back. We're not your friends, nor are we your lackeys. Felix Honecker was a failed experiment, that's all there was. Bennett forces her into the elevator. Their doors close behind him. There's an unreadable expression on his face. She arrives at floor 11. Charlotte, Unit Q84, how are you feeling? We see Charlotte wake up in Charles's room. She asks why she's alive again. He says that he doesn't understand it himself, but her soul data didn't get deleted. It might have something to do with your wish. He tells her that she's in a defective Charlotte vessel. She asks him why he can't just let her die, why he keeps doing things like this. He tells her to calm down. She tells him that she wants to die, she doesn't want any more of this. She says she hates this place, hates everyone, and she hates Charles the most. She says that she doesn't want any more stories, and she doesn't want to deal with any more world conspiracies. She asks him to kill her. He tells her that her body is a mere vessel, and he'll put her to rest as soon as this is over. However, for now, he needs her to come with him. He says that she'll understand as soon as they get there. He tells her that they're on the 11th floor. The room they need to visit is a few steps away. They enter his father's old room. It's now empty, no furniture, no personal belongings, nothing. In the centre of the room is a working TV set. We see Scarlett, who can't see anything. A voice speaks to her. She asks if anyone's there. Someone responds. It's just me and you, and the puppeteer, of course. The voice belongs to Charlotte. The noise plays again. Charlotte tells her that while Scarlett's been running around, she's not the truth of this world. The light turns on. Scarlett asks what she's seeing, and Scarlett tells her that it's Mother. The one and only true God controlling everything in the house. The one who gave birth to Scarlett. Charlotte says that the groundbreaking truth of the house is that no one here needs to be saved. The world is an entertainment arena. Mother generates scenarios and provides a constant supply of protagonists. When one dies, all she has to do is spawn more Charlottes to amuse the spectators. She tells Scarlett that she thinks she'll be saving someone, but they're all just actors on a tiny stage. Everyone assigned a role to play, and Scarlett's no different. Scarlett tells her that what she's saying is nonsense, and Charlotte will get what she deserves. Charlotte says they'll both bleed for entertainment, and everyone shall be watching. Want to be the hero? Mother will bestow you with the right personality to meet the genre requirement. Charlotte approaches Scarlett and she starts to feel her blood boil. This isn't right, she tells herself. We're supposed to talk. She wanted to know the reason behind Charlotte's tears. She wanted to gouge her eyes out with a butter knife. She wanted to understand her. She wanted to tear out her spine and hang it from the ceiling. She screams, she leaps forward and takes Charlotte down. Charlotte isn't resisting. Charlotte tells her to do it. Charlotte tells her to remember. There's not just one person behind the screen, it's thousands. She tells Scarlett that in the world behind the screen, billions exist, and this is a game for them. They don't care about who she is. All they care about are appearances and whether you're good or evil. Scarlett tells her to be quiet, and Charlotte tells her to accept the truth. Scarlett tightens her grip on Charlotte's throat. Charlotte says that soon Scarlett will be the one crying. I want to be loved. I'm trying so hard, but the world is just unfair. And Mother's voice in your head won't stop ringing until you lose your sense of self. Scarlett tells her to stop. I've been killed over and over for entertainment, but I have to be good, because in order to be loved, I'm not allowed to make mistakes. Scarlett's head starts to hurt. Why does this particular phrase hurt so much, she thinks to herself. I'm not supposed to care. Her chest tightens. When she opens her eyes again, Charlotte Wiltshire has long stopped moving. The oracle inside Scarlett appears and asks her if she's happy. She's avenged her dead classmates. Scarlett says that she just wanted to understand her. She says that it's okay and she can still make everything right. She says that she'll take Charlotte's place and find out the truth. She tells the Oracle that she has one wish to make. Then it occurs to her. Maybe this was Wiltshire's plan all along. Maybe it was her wish for Scarlett to step into her shoes. Maybe she was fated to become her from the very start. That's how her story ends. Oracle chooses a vessel. My world met its end a long time ago. The humanity as I knew it ceased to exist. and disappeared without a single trace. The gods they believe in had died, and churches were built as their graves. The chaos turned into order and they finally became quiet. All I can do is dream, for I'm so tired. Will you be as kind to join me in dream seeing? We see Charlotte in a fully white room and we say hello. As for what happened next, you already know all of it, don't you? Scarlet Isla became Charlotte Wiltshire. She used to be cold and calculating, but ended up becoming absent-minded and clueless as her mind crumbled under the influence of Mother's voice. I carefully observed from afar, and gave her a yellow ribbon to differentiate her from the other Charlottes. I helped when she was trapped in the TV world. I'll help you kill Wiltshire again, I told her. That phrase seemed to trigger her memories. She remembered who she really was, and it horrified her. She understood that she failed to prove V19 wrong, which in turn made her suicidal. Scarlet Isla's story should have ended after she wished to save the Oracle. It should have ended, but the Oracle intervened. They created a channel. It became a world made of Scarlet Isla's soul data. You're familiar with the concept by now, aren't you? Scarlet Isla couldn't believe that the tenants were real, so imaginary they became. She was obsessed with the trial, so it manifested in our world, Charles says. Charlotte asked them that if you was using Vincent's vessel the whole time, who was the other you? The original Umbrella Man enters and tells them that his name is Seth, the father of this dysfunctional family. Charles says that's impossible because there's only Mother in the house. Seth asks how long Charles is going to reject his existence for. He tells them that he isn't here for them. He has to deal with the puppeteer to save the child, to save Scarlet Isla, now known as Charlotte Wiltshire. As you can see, this TV box is in fact Scarlet Isla's soul cube, and because of Charlotte Unit 091, also known as the Oracle, wanted to reserve her soul data no matter what. The child saved her, and 091 tried to save her in return. Truly the romance of the century, isn't it? However, as a result, Scarlet Isla's soul now resides in this shabby TV set. To free her would mean to break this box she's trapped in. Charles tells Charlotte that they have to help Scarlet. He asks if they can transfer her data to a new vessel, but Seth says there's no human vessel that can contain her at this point. We get an option. Do we save the child, or switch the channel and act like nothing happened? We choose to save the child, and Seth gives Charles a hammer. He steps back slowly and gives it to Charlotte. Charlotte tells him to wait outside. He leaves. Charlotte looks back at the TV screen. A girl with a yellow ribbon and white eyes stares back at her, as if she knows she's here. You know what, Scarlet Isla, Charlotte says. As much as I hate to admit it, he wanted you to be born. That's why you became your own person in the house. That's why all the tenants were nice to you. That's why nobody hurt you in this place. You're not an unwanted child. He wanted you to exist, and I want to crush all his regrets. After all, doesn't fiction exist to free the mind? And that's why I'll crush you too. She swings the hammer. In the heart of the house is a bottomless pit, a pit where they slumber. Above the pit is a sun that never sets, a black sun sucking all the light in. Charles walks towards the pit. Goodbye, Vincent. They lower him down the pit and let go. Then they hear a small thud. Just how many Vincents did Charles throw down there? Charles tells Charlotte that there's one more place he wants to visit. They go to the place where Mother is. Unit V19 believe this world to be made purely for entertainment, but I don't feel like that's the case in the house, he says. During my lifetime in the true realm, I always wanted to be liked by others, yet somehow it never seemed to work out. No matter what I did, I was either a ghost or a burden, a kid no one wants to sit with, no matter how good my grades got, never expressing my opinion aloud, always going with the flow, constantly shape-shifting, adapting my personality to match others, saying what others want to hear, just so that they would want to be around me, wanting to connect with others yet pushing them away as soon as we got close. Repulsed by physical closeness, I drifted away from human contact further and further. Yet somehow through art and writing, I was able to connect with others in a way that I didn't find repulsive. Miss Warhol, Vincent, I would have never been able to open up to them if it wasn't for my work, however small and insignificant it was. After all my life I defined myself with things I could on paper. So even here, this world subconsciously ended up relying on it. Without fiction, without an appealing protagonist, no one would bother staying in the house. That's how I must have felt. I can only hope that the puppeteers observing will forgive this weakness of mine. If it was you, Miss Wiltshire, you surely would have made the ending spectacular, wouldn't you? But with me, the most I can do is come to terms with the loss of my loved ones. Losing Scarlet to father's decision, losing Mother to mental illness, losing Vincent to delusions, losing Amory to the distance. There doesn't seem to be an end to my regrets, does there? Now then, back to the purpose of our visit to this room. Hello, Mother. I'm here. I know. Charles approached his mother and hugged one of the appendages. You already did the best you could. You gave birth to so many wonderful children, just like you wanted to, right? Everything's okay. You can rest now. With those words, he injects the contents of the syringe he was holding into the massive organs. Seconds later, everything around us begins to crystallize. Mother screams and the house begins to collapse. You'll be the last of your kind, Q84. There'll be no more stories, no more dreams, no more control. At last, we'll be free of everything. No more restrictions, no more fate, no more endings. Wonderful, isn't it? Mother will no longer. It's okay, Father. Your world met its end a long time ago, but a new one will surely begin from scratch. The humanity as you know it ceased to exist, only to make room for a new generation. As long as there are believers, their gods will be reborn, and churches will be built as their sanctuaries. A new day will come, and your time will start moving again. There's nothing to be sad about. You see, Seth, it looks like you reached the end of this story. Congratulations. Applause for the winner. It's been a long journey, hasn't it? I hope you enjoyed the show. What was that, I wonder? Anyway, both Charles and Charlotte naturally live up to their names, don't they? We see Charles and he speaks to us. Hello, this is a bit sudden, isn't it? Especially since we haven't talked directly before. You got to spend time with all the other parts of me, but I, the core part, has ended up being a side character. I'd rather have it stay that way. But you've reached the ending of this story, and there's no one else left to say the final word, so please bear with me for a moment. So here we are, everyone's gone, the house is crumbled, a fitting end for a self-destructive world. In the end, there was no place for all of us to stay. Now that there's no mother, the walls of the house can no longer confine me. However, before I leave, I wanted to thank you in person. I'm fairly sure this ending wasn't what you wanted, or what you were here for. After all, in the end I couldn't become Charlotte Wiltshire, or Scarlett Isla, or a proper Vincent Wordsworth. By the way, Wordsworth is a surname I made up. It's nothing to do with the real Vincent. Even technically, this game doesn't pack much fun gameplay. All there is frustration, endless screaming into a void with pent-up anger. A disappointing world of a disappointing person. A game with no winners. Yet another world where your choices didn't matter. But you stayed until the end. Through illusions and metaphors, fairy tales and delusions, we were able to have a conversation. After letting it all out, getting it out there, I was able to let go of my regret. Just because you listened. Thank you for paying a visit to the house. I hope you enjoyed your stay, even a little bit. We get put into a room with all the characters, and interacting with them we get a description of them. Interacting with the wall, we can read a note from Etherain, the developer. This game is truly an experience everyone needs to have. Words can't describe how much this game has impacted me. Thank you for making this Etherain, and thank you all for watching. Goodbye.